Celestia Ludenberg, also known as Celeste, is recruited to Hope's Peak Academy as the ultimate gambler, with virtue that she has never lost a wager and managed to garner a fortune from her victories. From her obsessive interest in becoming European nobility to her vast knowledge of game theory, she's arguably one of the most distinct and interesting characters in the cast, and has seen quite a bit of love from the community. For many, however, her trial seems to be their least favorite, and with good reason. In this video essay, I will try to explain how Case 3 failed to utilize Celestia's full potential as a manipulative, unhinged antagonist, and how the live action did a much better job with her. In order to understand what went wrong with the game, we first have to establish two key aspects of Celestia's characterization. One being her luck coded in her from birth that gave her the title of Ultimate Gambler, and the other, the strategic set of skills she's developed throughout her career, most notably her superb ability to lie. The important distinction to make here is that while the latter's a much more active sort of quality, it's only there in order to complement her main talent of always managing to acquire a good hand. Celestia herself corroborates this during one of her free time events, where she's kind enough to explain her perfect gambling strategy. According to her, strategic thinking is a must for any game, insofar as it helps tip the scales in your favor, but the power of good luck is a force that can overwhelm any ploy, and she's had an endless supply of it since birth. From these remarks, we can conclude that she also thinks more highly of Skill 1, and would be more likely to utilize it should she decide to become the Black Hand. Unfortunately, the writing of Case 3 handles both facets of her character incorrectly. For one, Celestia never ends up using her talent as a gambler. Her plan to commit a double murder relies entirely on her sub-talent as the Queen of Liars, where she takes in Yamada as an accomplice and manipulates him into killing Ishimaru, only to then do away with him. Throughout the process, she actively works to deceive the others' perceptions of what's going on, and drags them on a wild goose chase for the killer, every step of the process having been thoroughly calculated. All this scheming leaves little room for the divine forces that have always seemed to lend Celestia a hand, and leaves the most important chunk of her kit unused. To add insult to injury, the inorganic proceeding of this scheme, where she constantly shepherds everyone to where she needs them to be at any given time, only serves to increase people's suspicions of her during the trial. Her own words begin to be used against her. Having said that, even though her case puts so much emphasis on the mastermind aspect of her personality, the way her plan is set up doesn't do justice to that either. For instance, why give Hifumi Yamada so much creative control with the design of the suit, when she never seemed to have a high opinion of his intellect to begin with? It's unclear whether Celestia intended for the suit to not be able to bend at the waist, since she made use of it being able to stand upright on its own to take the misleading photo. Nevertheless, the pivotal part of her plan with the suit was to pin the blame on Hagakure, and her machinations completely fell apart because of this damning detail. Yamada is shown to be a very passionate yet naive soul who's extremely vulnerable to manipulation, a big part of the reason why Celestia chose him to be her accomplice. Therefore, I don't think the issue here was any mutiny on his end. He simply didn't receive enough supervision or guidance regarding such a central element to the plan, which to me seems not only incompetent, but grossly out of character for Celestia. To summarize everything I've said thus far, the writer's decision to bring Queen of Liars to the center stage while pushing Ultimate Gambler to the peripheral was a wrong move to make. What made things even worse was not only that the plan itself wasn't as well thought out as it appeared, but that the one mistake that did Celestia in during the trial was that she couldn't lie well. In multiple instances at that. From the moment the trial begins, we see a suspicious shift in her behavior. She seems not only uninterested in pursuing any other interpretations other than her own, but actively works to dispirit the others from deliberating further. Compare this to her attitude during Sayaka's murder, where she actively encourages her peers to speak up about any lingering concerns they may have. Towards Naegi especially, she starts on the offensive from the get-go for no discernible reason, making rude remarks about his intelligence and lack of credibility.
There is no shame in being wrong. Nobody expects much from you anyway. We have all accepted the fact that you rarely understand what is going on around you.
Another instance where she fails to be convincing is when her facade cracks within moments of getting accused of being the Blackened for the first time.
I really do hate this kind of joke.
A joke? I wonder.
So what you are saying, then, is that I specifically chose to work together with Hifumi. The idea that I would choose to spend any amount of time interacting with him, that I would go within 10 feet of that shit for brains, that lazy, worthless goddamn idiot! Pardonnez-moi.
With the mere implication being enough to push her over the edge, it certainly brings the poker face she's known for into question. All things considered, with everyone else behaving as they usually do, but her conduct having done a 180, she sticks out like a sore thumb in the eyes of the player as well, and the pace quickly picks up from there. Finally, her most egregious mistake is her notorious slip-up, something a good liar should never do, where while the murders are taking place, she mistakenly lets loose the fact that she knows Ishimaru died. This is the point of no return for her in the trial, as it convinces everyone, including those previously skeptical of her guilt. Although it's reasonable for her to trip over herself at least once after having told so many lies, she had no reason to make such a statement at the time, as Byakuya also makes note of in the trial. In fact, this pitfall could have been easily avoided had she simply kept quiet.
Now, the entire time we were together, none of us said anything about Taka being dead. Think about it. Celeste's comment doesn't make sense. It was completely out of place.
Why is Celestia portrayed to have such bad luck? All in all, this is a very underwhelming reveal that brazenly betrays everything we know about her. Now let's contrast this with how Danganronpa the stage handles Celestia's case. Since it would be near impossible to shoe in 6 different trials into a 2.5-hour play, the production team made certain creative shortcuts. One of those shortcuts being to merge cases 3 and 4 together. A risky move to be sure, but it was executed flawlessly. The events proceed as follows. The third case first appears to be skipped, as the cast finds the body of Sakura, the victim of the 4th chapter. Without going into too much detail, Sakura invites Togami, Fukawa, Yamada, Hagakure, and Celestia to talk things over. She sends each a note, stating she wants to speak to them separately. When Celestia arrives, she finds Sakura on the ground, having already poisoned herself, but still alive. After getting a grasp of the state Sakura is in, Celestia thanks her for having given herself a chance of winning the killing game. Laughing, she picks up a bat and proceeds to bludgeon Sakura in the head multiple times. The point of her violence is to blur the true cause of Sakura's death. Betting on her infallible gambling luck, she turns the entire trial into a farce, and now everyone's lives are left at the mercy of a coin toss. Nobody's allowed to back down.
どういうことだね。その女は俺たちに2択のギャンブルを仕掛けてきた。大神さくらは自殺か、それともセレスのオーダーによって死んだのか、それを選んでみろということだ。おそらく本当の死因がどちらかはセレス本人にもわからないだろう。なんですと？皆さんはどう思いますか？
This iteration works wonders for Celestia's characterization. Her true talent is finally the focal point of her storyline. The ultimate gambler forces everyone to make the most important wager of their lives, and this maximizes the tension by having the game suddenly stray from its usual format. It's ingenious. What's more, it also works to honor the proposition Celeste makes to Naegi during one of their free time events, where she expresses a desire to put her luck as the ultimate gambler and Naegi's luck as the ultimate lucky student to the test. Such a showdown never happens in the game, of course, but the play certainly sees to it. A final note I wish to make about the live-action performance is how it goes about representing Celestia's manipulative side. Less emphasis is put on this aspect of her, and adequately so. Her tendency toward lying is already made abundantly clear both in the game and live action through the way in which she presents herself. Despite this, the live action does not back down from paying homage to the self-made aspect of Celestia, and it does this as an efficient way of tying up loose ends. By slightly tweaking the events of Case 2, the show has already sent Ishimaru to his grave, but Yamada, who's supposed to die after Case 3, is still alive at that point. During the final moments of voting, Celestia decides to prey on his indecisive, panicked state with a sly suggestion that coaxes him into making the wrong bet. This dooms Yamada's fate, and both him and Celestia end up suffering Monokuma's punishment. To conclude, while the live action is unable to recreate and carry Celestia's phenomenal in-game execution on stage, it does a much better job at telling the story of her struggle for survival. It handles the two core aspects of her personality effectively, consistently, and with the correct prioritization. It's unfortunate that so much of what Celestia had to offer in terms of innovation, chaos, and thrill to the story at large was left unused in the game. But as it's said, better late than never. Thank you for watching.